Hey everybody, this is Shahaf. Today is May 17, and today is a product update. If a product deep dive, if you may. We'll discuss COTI Pay Business, specifically the implementation that we are currently doing for an enterprise that we've covered. It's a big project. We are very excited about it. So for this, we've invited Alex that actually manages this product to tell us all about it. So without further ado, let's deep dive into COTI Pay Business. Okay, so let's begin. So first and foremost, what is COTI Pay Business and what is the specific solution that we're bringing to our enterprise partner?
So first of all, thank you for having me. It's been a while since we have done such a video together, so it's my pleasure always. Hello to our viewers. So what is COTI Pay Business? So I'll kind of start from the basics. So we have our DAG-based protocol, and the entire vision of COTI is enterprise layer 1. Basically consists of few parts, technological efforts that we would require to achieve in order to fulfill our entire vision, which is basically the use case. The main use case is a private payment networks for enterprise.
Okay, so but what is a private payment network?
So that's a good one. So a private payment network, well, as the name implies, it's basically a payment network. So let's just take that part and discuss it. So a payment network allows you to transfer value between different parties. And the network is basically the infrastructure that enables this action. What is a private payment network? So usually how payments work today, if one entity wishes to transfer some value to another entity, there's a mitigator in the middle. So if we are discussing traditional financial sector, there's banks, right? There's credit card companies, there are different kind of payment solutions. But there's kind of always a middleman there. So as we know, blockchain is borderless, and it enables transferring value, cross-border in a simple fashion. Still today, there are a lot of enterprises that use third-party services in order to achieve this transaction mechanism, right? Basically, accepting payments, right, and having the ability to refund those payments in order to operate their business. So, how does the private part come to play here? So, basically, based on our technology stack, we were able to achieve a capability of creating private payment networks that in essence has a token that the enterprise creates. This is the payment means, basically the value transporter, if you wish. Mm-hmm. And in addition, we use our infrastructure to facilitate those payments between the enterprise and the end user.
Okay, so it's called private because the enterprise creates it for itself and for its user base, and not using essentially traditional rails that he doesn't own, and hence they are expensive. They take away from important data that he doesn't own, and maybe fail some of the transactions, specifically if they're borderless. So I get the private part, and I understand the private payment network. What else is part of the solution that this enterprise takes?
I would only add a small part to what you said. Obviously, everything is right on spot, but there's also the trust issue, right? When you use a third-party solution and you're basically enabled to control the entire flow, there's trust issues that may rise. And when you use PPN, you basically control the circulation of the token. It also enables you to be compliant in many ways because you control the entire flow. And you don't have to trust any third parties. And if you're not using any third parties, so obviously there's the reduced cost related to operating a PPN.
Which reminds me, it completely solves fraud. Because fraud happens when someone pays for a product or service, he gets them, and then he declines a transaction with the credit card network like Visa and MasterCard. And they usually, automatically tells the merchant that he's not getting paid for that, and then he needs to prove it. And if it's not a high value transaction, then they probably wouldn't bother. And that is obviously not an issue here because value is transferred immediately as if it was cash. Okay, private payment network. What else the enterprise is taking from this?
Well, basically, there's a huge business opportunity for the enterprise, and particularly enterprises that are working in the gaming industry, because they already have the means to basically get fiat from their users. That's something that they are really good. They have a lot of methods to do so, but there's the problem of the middleman there. And there's the matter of cross-border payments and different types of policies. And basically, it's really, really complicated when an enterprise is operating on a global scale. And basically, having a PPN on blockchain simplifies the solution because of all of the parameters that you mentioned. So basically, by creating that token, they already have established trust with their users. So the users trust the enterprise knows the users, right? So this kind of takes care of the KYC problem. It also takes care of a lot of the fraud-related issues. And it also enables them to issue refund and provide service to their loyal user base. So again, the thing that they're earning there, in particular use case that we're discussing, right, that enterprise project that we mentioned, is that they are going to create multiple tokens for their PPN. And basically, each token will represent a fiat currency, meaning that
a different fiat currency.
A different fiat currency, right? For example, it might be USD, it might be INR, a JPY, any fiat currency that is out there. And by doing so, they basically opening themselves out to the entire world in terms of, if their user comes from Japan, so he can basically get JPY tokens. If he comes from the United States, he can get USD, Europe, Euro, and so forth and so forth.
Yeah.
So potentially, there's more than 128 possible tokens to be generated to facilitate this private payment network.
But in theory, like a user from Japan could have paid with a token, and specifically it's a CMD token, right, based on COTI's Multi-DAG 2.0.
Yeah.
And that token could have been pegged to a dollar and not a yen, but we understand that it's less natural for users. This is why people localize their websites and denominate prices in local currencies. Okay, so a private payment network with 5 CMD tokens, each pegged to a different fiat currency to make it natural for the user.
For the start.
Yep. And how are the users transferring the value to how do they onboard to the private payment network? Take me through the user journey.
Sure. So I'm a user, right? I go to the enterprise platform, basically website application.
Yep.
I go to KYC process, registration, whatever it involves, right? So now we basically establish trust between the user and the enterprise. We know each other. And then basically he wished to provide, well, basically he needs to put some cash in order to play those type of games, right? So he will use a traditional means such as credit card, or a bank transfer, but this is more in the Western world. What is important to understand, and the majority of people that coming from the developed world does not understand, is that in the third world countries and developing countries, not everyone have a bank account.
Yeah.
Not everyone, if you don't have a bank account, so it's really hard to you to get a credit card.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of alternative payment means in those regions that basically you can take the fiat in an alternative payment mean. You can issue the player a token, a user a token, right? And basically that token locks the value of that currency that he used to onboard himself to the platform.
Yes, and people understand, by the way, the underbanked, like the 2 billion people that don't have access to bank infrastructure. What people don't realize is not just the unbanked, but the underbanked, meaning people that do have access to some financial infrastructure, but not the sort of infrastructure that you may have in the US, Europe, or Israel to that extent. Okay, so I can use some payment method to buy that CMD token from the enterprise and kick off my relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the only way in, right? What happens if that user already has crypto?
So that's a great point, right? So let's say, well, first of all, it's the first way to get into the enterprise, right? Basically by providing some fiat in some sort of a payment method, alternative payment method. That's one way to go. Usually in those regions, it's really hard to set up shop in terms of accepting payments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much more easier to have a token that has a value and it's pegged to a fiat currency, and it can be easily distributed through alternative means. So for example, let's say you want to establish some sort of a partnership with that enterprise and say, I wish to distribute your payment tokens, right? Because it has a utility on the platform. A user can basically go to his neighborhood shop. If there's an established relationship with the enterprise, the shop holds the token, which represents fiat. So the shop can basically now take your fiat and provide you with the token, and you can go and use its utility. So it simplifies the distribution of this utility token. So that's the biggest advantage there from that perspective.
Okay, so we have a private payment network. Users can buy into 5 different CMD tokens, right?
Yeah.
They can do that with fiat on the merchant's website, or they can do it with crypto, right? So essentially they can, maybe from a DEX or a centralized exchange, get any of these tokens and use them on the platform. So that allows for quite a wide distribution. And distribution is key because that specific enterprise user base is quite big.
Yeah, of course, once the token is in circulation, right, and it's on the blockchain, so it eventually will find itself to decentralized exchanges, for example, right? Users will be able to exchange value using that token as,
Sure.
as it's accepted in the blockchain industry. So again, tokens will be circulated, and you don't have to directly go to the fiat ramp, right?
Yeah.
You can take any token and basically exchange it for that utility
Essentially,
token.
So here is like a mental model to think about this. The enterprise issues a stable coin, multiple stable coins. The collateral for this stable coins is essentially the fiat that users bought in on the merchant's website to get these tokens. So users have put in $1 million,
Yeah.
and now there's million tokens issued, million CMD based pegged to US dollar tokens issued.
Yeah.
Some won, some lost. Anyway, it's on the user's wallet, and then it can go to circulation, right? And it can go to exchanges and whatnot.
Of course.
So we have like an interesting thing here where the issuer is actually an enterprise, and that token can have its own value and maybe used, in some areas or other merchants' website.
Sure, as long as, again, not stable, it's pegged, right, of course, and the utility is that, for example, one USD token is worth 1 USD on the platform. It's also important to understand the mechanism how the enterprises are going to incentivize their users and why they need their own token, right? So first of all, companies can go and use traditional crypto gateways in order to receive payments in crypto gateway. This is not something new, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a novelty solution. It's out there. Well, first of all, there's the related cost to paying the fees for those platforms, right? And we discussed in why the advantages of a VPN there. So of course you can obtain this token via going directly with through the enterprise. You can also get it off the blockchain, on a decentralized exchange. You can get it on the corner shop. There's a lot of ways to get that token, and going back to the use case you presented, of course, users will be also able to play with those tokens, and of course they will be able to win. And they will be able to cash out / withdraw those tokens back to their crypto wallets.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that token will have its own value. And of course, it's pegged to a fiat currency, but the enterprise will also provide additional incentives, right? In order to drive adoption. So if you decide to participate in that ecosystem of that enterprise, right, play the games with the token, you will get different bonuses. So this is kind of the first stage of the enterprise to provide those incentives for its user base to adopt that PPN. That's one stage. In the future, I see that those payment tokens will play nicely with also loyalty tokens that can be issued by the enterprise. So for example, right now, let's say I put 1,000 USD into the platform, I get 1,200 playing tokens.
Yep.
I can also withdraw them, right? There's loyalty, there's incentives there. And in the future, going forward, as we said, we are able to provide payment tokens, but we can also issue loyalty tokens. And that loyalty token can have its own economy, right? Because if I now hold payment token that enable me to play, if I combine them with some loyalty tokens, I might get bonuses, I might get benefits,
Sure.
and so forth and so forth. So this is basically the entire economy of this solution.
And this can also grow, like, because maybe I mean, this specific enterprise is big, right? But what if I'm a smaller player in this space, in the gaming industry? I have my own website, etc. And I get why a private payment network is lucrative, but I say in my website, hey, I'm now willing to accept this type of tokens as a payment method, right? Because it doesn't, I mean, approval rate is 100%, it's very efficient, it costs me nothing, so why not, right?
Yeah.
Like what I'm doing is actually, this is kind of like a user acquisition technique, right? I'm kind of like, hey, I'm willing to accept your money here and onboard these users. And when that happens, and it may happen again and again and again, suddenly there's an economy around this token that has grown beyond that merchant's website. And I think this is quite exciting. Okay. So I see the following benefits for this enterprise, and this is what they see, right? So first of all, we have a decrease in the operational costs for the enterprise, right? Because they don't need to pay processing anymore, and so we clear processing for someone in the gaming industry is very expensive. This is not your 0.25%. This is more like 2.5% or even more, and for alternative payment methods, it can be more. This is coming from the top line. This is excruciating.
It is excruciating, and if you leave the fees aside, there's operational complexities because you have different processors, different countries.
Compliance.
You have to have compliance. You have to have huge teams that will operate those payment flows, and basically, by establishing a PPM, you can consolidate those flows into a single flow.
Yep.
And drive the adoption and basically drive down the cost, the complexity.
Yeah. And you also grow loyalty, right? Because what's more loyal than someone that is already with your token, right? Let's think about a casino in Vegas, right? I'm at the Bellagio, and it's the only one I know. And then I hold their token, like the one you bet with.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm loyal to Bellagio because this is the thing I have right now in my pocket. I'm there, right? So when you hold a specific token, obviously you become loyal by association to that enterprise. What else? What are the growth opportunities that can come from issuing your own token? Like one of the things I can think of, maybe you can think of more, is the token suddenly having its own life. So maybe a smaller platform adopts this token as well. And hello, we are now accepting this token because it will reduce our costs as well and will increase our approval rate, right? Because this is never declined, no fraud around it. Great, so I'm willing to accept it too. Essentially, I'm doing a user acquisition campaign on a certain audience that that merchant has. So what are the other growth opportunities that you see in this?
So I'll actually use the use case that you presented in order to explain the huge business potential here, right? So as soon as, let's say, Bellagio, right? You went there, you gave some fiat, right, USD or whatever, depends on your location around the world. So you walk in, you get chips. Let's say those chips are tokens. So you played, you won some, you lost some, and basically when you leave the casino, you have to cash out, and you will get your fiat back.
Yep.
So when you have a PPN and you have your own private payment token, basically with the addition of the loyalty that you give, so for example, when you walk into a casino, you put $1,000, but you get 1,200 chips. So first of all, you have more, you can play, you can enjoy. The huge business potential here, it's, let's say, Bellagio, right, has franchises, right? It has smaller casinos around the world, and that might be directly related to it, or they might be in the same industry. And let's imagine a scenario that you walk in, right? You play, you won, right? You walked in with 1,200 tokens, but you walked out with 5,000. And then the next day you fly to a different country and you're a player, right? You go there and those tokens are accepted by that venue as well.
Yes.
So,
and maybe even the coffee shop or the burger shop or there, or anything that is willing to accept this token, and this is all obviously digital, so it's quite easy. All you need to do is set up a wallet, and
of course, because there's an issuer, it's a known name, there's a brand, right? You always know that they are good for it, and basically this enables a lot of business opportunities, a lot of partnerships. And the way that we are building it, right, we are building it for one use case. But for example, tomorrow, if another business, right, it doesn't have to be in the gaming industry, wishes to establish its own PPN with its own tokenomics, we can easily basically replicate this solution.
Yep.
And in the future, of course, because they are going through us, I can see potential partnership forming because they're all in the same ecosystem.
Yes. Let's talk about the underlying technologies involved in this development. What have we used?
So it's kind of been an evolution, right? Because COTI has been around for 5 years now. Myself have been for a year and a half too. I'd always say like 1 year in COTI is 3 years in other venues. So in order to achieve this this point that we are now, which is a really exciting point, is basically when vision meets reality, when the product meets the market, right? We are basically achieving the product market fit. Because we said we invested a lot of time in building our layer one. Basically, it's DAG based, so it always has its benefits, the speed, latency, security elements that we added to the network. And then we continued to evolve the protocol by enabling to generate those tokens. And this was the multi-DAG 2.0 effort that we did. And in addition, we upgraded the bridge capabilities. So we now have bridge 2.0. And basically this entire solution, and with the utilization of bridge 2.0, will enable us, for example, to take those tokens from the PPNs and basically bridge them to other networks. For example, other layer ones, successful layer ones. And this will allow the enterprise itself to say, now my user base is on one layer one, because I'm operating in a certain region and there's a certain layer one that is super popular there and I want to be there. But if I want to go to a different market and offer my tokens there, I'll probably go to maybe to a different layer one. And by building this entire solution on COTI's trust chain, and if we utilize our bridge 2.0 technology, we can bridge that liquidity across, and you can be in multiple places basically at once. And as a result, expand your market, expand your business, create new partnerships, create new opportunities. So again, vision meets reality. And for me, it's really exciting because we're actually going to meet the market here.
Cool. And I guess our listeners in it for the tech, but they do want to know what are they getting out of it. So who is paying for this technology development, for this product?
Well, that's the thing, right? So obviously we have a lot of costs related to develop the infrastructure, the technology itself. And when I say now we have the product, which is our layer 1, our infrastructure that is suited for enterprise, now we are actually having the opportunity by utilizing this use case, right, this PPN, actually to start receiving payments, right, for our infrastructure. And it will come in two forms. One, first of all, the transactions are going to happen on the trust chain, right? And there's network fees, and as probably the community knows, then those network fees find themselves to treasury eventually, right? That's one. In addition, in order to achieve this solution, we are going to build software that includes a crypto gateway, right? Because, PPN, we now established that tokens will be created, they will be circulated, but now we need to build a platform that will enable the enterprise to actually receive payments, refund payments, and when user deposit those fiat tokens via the crypto gateway that we're going to provide, and users are playing on the venue, they also would like to withdraw, right, and go maybe to a decentralized exchange, maybe different networks. So this is kind of how it all aligns, and of course we have also platform fees. So each transaction that they're going to be realized through the crypto gateway that we are building, we are also going to get fee in the form of paid in COTI, our own native cryptocurrency.
Okay, so network costs or gas, right? So
yeah.
The merchant obviously needs to have COTI to pay for the gas fees, clear, and also transactional fees.
Of course.
For using our platform, you pay the fees, and that is also paid with COTI. So that will increase the demand for COTI because the merchant needs to buy this.
Of course.
And if all goes well, then we have 5 CMD tokens out there in the wild. If it goes well, then there's a huge demand for these tokens, hence greater demand for COTI. Fees are paid with COTI. That COTI goes to the treasury and paid out to users through an APY increase.
Yeah.
So that is the whole grail there. Okay, so I think we pretty much covered it. So from beginning, from top to bottom, I am a user. I want to play in this website, this certain game with this enterprise, right? Now, the merchant actually prefers that I use this new method that we've described today because it costs him less, like significantly less. It has no fraud. It is paid instantly. And it has 100% acceptance rate, unlike traditional payment methods. So they encourage me to do so by offering me greater rewards, greater bonuses, loyalty, and so on and so forth. So I bite. I want to do this. So I either use fiat or alternative payment method to buy this token, or I can get it, if I have crypto, I can find it on a certain DEX or centralized exchange.
Yeah.
I now have it. I play the games. Some win, some lose. If I won, I can withdraw using this same currency. Now, I can play again tomorrow, or if this grows really well, then I may start using this token on other venues, satellite venues, right? They can be partners of this merchant, or they can just be smaller enterprises that are willing to accept this. And whenever any of this thing happen and they all make sense, then network fee grows and the demand for COTI grows because there's a need to pay these fees. And ultimately, holders of COTI benefited because they get it in the form of APY. So that kind of like closes the loop. Sounds good. Okay, so this is COTI Pay Business and utilization with an enterprise. I think we're all very excited about this. Alex, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And for those of you who watches, I hope you're excited as us. The future looks bright. Thank you for being here. Stay COTI.